Secure, contain, protect. The SCP Foundation, safeguarding humanity now, in the past, and in the future.
SCP Foundation Breach Report. SCP-1607-J-R2.
Anytime you're ready, sir.
We are here to discuss the January incident at Site-1607. Ready?
Recording, sir. Breach debriefing up file 1607J185.
Dr. Porter, on January 5th at you sent an LRC to O4 Command. Level C, Code White. Danger of containment breach imminent. Unknown number of augmented humanoid and large humanoid aggressors testing containment fence. On-site security forces inadequate. Breach into surrounding countryside estimated within 48 hours. On-site fatalities. Security Force MTF NU7 hammer down dispatched. Does that sound like the correct sequence of events, Dr. Porter?
Yes, indeed. The sequence.
SCP-1607 has predictable elements. We know when a manifestation will occur and what to expect. That is all part of the record and why it is in containment. You've been with the Foundation 10 years. This was your 4th year as director at Site-1607, correct?
Yes, sir.
The manifestation cycle arrived at the normal time with the standard result of SCP-1607-J. The village appeared and the surrounding area changed to a tropical rainforest. Drones record footage of a ritual taking place that morning at the rising of the sun. Nothing unusual in itself, except for the large number of sacrifices, a new record. The sacrifices looked like they came from a variety of other local tribes and nations. They were dismembered on the black stone altar, with runners taking body parts to various buildings or households throughout the settlement. What remained went back into the temple. Shortly after sunrise, the ritual came to a halt. Regular village life followed. The villagers were observed for 2 days. Nothing looked that different from previous instances, except for the large number of compound eyes which had never been seen before. Almost everyone in the urban area displayed this alteration, which ranged in blue, green, and black in various sizes and shapes. Though most common in the city, even those out in the farming belt displayed these augments. Did this not strike you as unusual?
Not particularly, no. The population changes all the time. There's no telling how much time really passes between manifestations. What is a year to us is clearly much longer. In the case of 1607-J, we estimate it currently between 120 and 60 years.
You authorized a diplomatic mission 48 hours later. D-17665 and D-22004 crossed the controlled perimeter at on code names Tommy and Janet. They proceeded to the diplomatic clearing, which has been used successfully in the past. They lit a small signal fire and performed the ritual with the pipes. Can you explain what happened next?
19 minutes and 8 seconds later, the bushes parted and several natives appeared. 2 were from a new warrior class we'd never seen before. The other 3 were diplomatic envoys of the sort we're familiar with. While unusually tall and thin, they had silver, compound eyes. They were about 7 feet tall. The warriors towered over them and looked to be between 9 and 10 feet tall. They were a fascinating hybrid creature, part human, the upper half, and part giant white spider with massive hairy legs like a giant albino tarantula. They exchanged offerings and were escorted into town.
Okay, let's stop here a moment. During the last manifestation, the same type of envoy approached the diplomatic clearing one composed of 5 individuals, 2 warrior-class escorts and 3 diplomatic-class, or 1 diplomat and 2 additional servants. I'll read from your report. Warrior-class escorts were tall and thickly muscled. Their arms and hands were completely covered by strange material that made them look larger than human appendages. It looked leathery and was covered with wood and bone panels and protrusions. I have a theory that it was not a covering over any real appendage, but the limb itself. 24 hours after this incident, you requested permission to obtain a sample of one of these appendages. That request was denied.
Yes, another short-sighted decision by the faceless ones. Think of what secrets I may have gotten from examining one of those working limbs. Say what you want about primitive societies, but their inventions make the finest Swiss watchmakers of old look like roadhouse carnies armed with belts and hammers. I've seen hydraulics made of laminated plant material that are self-contained, don't use any oil or electricity. I've seen flywheels as big as your thumb that hold a week's worth of energy that you can wind up by hand. Clean energy. So yeah, that's what I wanted. That's why I made the request. I figured it was worth an arm from a...
All right, let's go on.
If that pleases you.
You tracked them as they left the clearing, designated M00, and continued down the main trail, T00, to the farmland region. They turned down R21 for the remainder of the trip into town itself, where they went straight to the palace, P00, after crossing the Zocalo. It was a busy day. Along with compound eyes already mentioned, villagers exhibited a variety of augmentations. Tentacles coming from biceps, extraordinary height, secondary sets of arms at the hip, pedipalp-like augmentations to collarbones and faces, pig legs, frog legs, cat legs, jaguar tails. Activity in the Zocalo included vendors offering animals for sale, produce, jewelry, and slaves. Dancers entertained a crowd. Stalls sold human flesh painted with spices in shades of green, red, and yellow. Street butchers were butchering animals in a stall made of blankets hung from frames. D-22004's body camera lingered on one long enough to show the animal they were butchering was not something known on Earth. It resembled a pig with an exoskeleton. 4 stocky legs mounted on the sides of its body, not below, and spike-clawed feet. Its head was like a dog with an alligator snout. The pale pink thing moved slowly, like it may have been drugged. Our D-Class personnel entered the palace. Do you have anything to say, Dr. Porter? The video shows the throne room and an individual sitting on the throne before the D-Class personnel are stripped of their clothing and body cameras, and we lose contact. At 10 hours, 18 minutes, and 43 seconds, a single frame of footage clearly shows a small stand or riser next to the throne. Upon it is resting a shiny container made of glass and composite materials. This vessel has been identified as a standard basic liquid sample transport container used by the SCP Foundation. Are you sure you don't have anything to say?
All right, let's cut the crap.
Yes, Dr. Porter. Are you willing to admit that you supplied SCP-1607-J with a controlled substance?
If you insist on calling a safe-class substance a controlled substance, then yes, that is correct.
SCP-447-2, correct?
Yes.
You had permission to access Foundation stores of SCP-447-2.
Yes.
What did you do with those samples?
I flavored my coffee.
You must have had a lot of coffee on. You drew 2 liters of SCP-447-2 using 2 standard liquid transport containers. Neither one of those vessels has been found, and you claim they were destroyed by accident in the trash. What was your intent, Doctor?
I already told you. I want to know more about their prosthetic technology. Well, it was obvious the small brains weren't going to help, so I decided to proceed anyway. Using the natives of SCP-1607 was a stroke of brilliance, if I do say so myself. I supplied them with SCP-447-2 and waited.
Knowing SCP-447-2's well-documented effect on dead bodies, you willfully introduced this substance to their culture.
Culture? They're SCPs. Lab rats have just as much culture. Can you imagine what must have happened over there with all those dead?
You could have compromised their reality.
But I didn't. They fixed the problem. Somehow, this barely technological culture overcame a problem that's been beating the greatest intellects of the SCP Foundation for years. How? Isn't that worth looking into? Let's not even discuss the technological leap they're displaying with those hybrid creatures. They've done more in one cycle of SCP-1607 for our research than a team of hand-picked O-level monkeys could have done in 10 years.
So you had to know more.
Yes.
So you sent in an extraction team.
Yes! That was, of course, standard procedure in the event harm came to an envoy.
Yes, obviously. I have their report right here, from a Sergeant. Let's review it. We got to the marketplace, the Zocalo, and the people, if you can call them all people, were already clearing out. I dropped a flashbang to make sure they knew we weren't tourists. Then a different warrior caste came out of a side street. They had legs like giant grasshoppers, and the rest just swelled up to 3 times normal size. Arms like telephone poles. They were on us in 2 bounds, swinging clubs made of polished green stone. Specialists Marlowe and died instantly, and their bodies were dragged off. Dr. Porter did not grant permission to retrieve them. That was 8:51 a.m.
We engaged with our M16s again and eliminated resistance. Reinforcements were appearing, so we rushed the palace doors and gained entry with no further casualties.
Specialist threw a grenade.
Yes, sir. It cleared the entrance and the connecting hall. We got to the throne room with no further resistance. It was empty. Following the map, we headed down a hallway and went down a short flight of stairs to P05. The room was a lot bigger than we thought. It must have been several hundred feet or more across. Thick stone columns were spaced out at intervals, holding the ceiling up. There were tables, vats, and clay jars all over the place. The priests, or whoever was working there, mostly scattered when we appeared. It was smoky as hell in there from the lanterns and this minty-smelling incense that smoldered everywhere in little pots and gourds. There were vats of SCP-447-2, or something similar. It glowed with a bright green light. There was slight resistance as we searched, until I decided it was a lost cause. The room was larger than I thought and branched off into other large rooms. Specialist obtained a sample of the suspect SCP-447-2 material while we rigged thermite charges.
That was 9:36.
The container must have slipped. While catching it, she immersed her hand in the glowing material.
Did you notice any issue with her combat gear after that?
No, nothing unusual. She sealed the container and wiped it off on some cloth that was lying on a stone table nearby. If there was a problem, she didn't say anything.
Please, go on.
As we were exiting, 2 modified natives confronted us. That's when I noticed the bodies on a table to one side of the room. Now there were lots of bodies and body parts all over the place on tables and
fastened to weird devices, some in the process of being spliced or split. Some were maybe because of SCP-447-2, but these two bodies caught my eye because they were bigger than the others. It was Tommy and Janet, our D-class diplomats, dressed out on a stone table. Their skins were hanging on the wall next to them, and two doctors with weird stone instruments hovered nearby. We had orders to retrieve them only if they were alive. We got out and blew the charges. Then we made our way back to the exit. When we got to the farm belt, and started screaming. Something was wrong with her hand, the one she dipped in the goo. It swelled up and wouldn't stop. It got bigger and bigger, and when it was about as big as she was, it burst. This stinking pus splashed everyone. How long did this take? The swelling? Oh, it went from normal hand to exploding pus bag in about 2 minutes, sir. Maybe less. Specialist was ready to amputate, but it happened too fast. And that was fatal to Specialist. Yes, it looked like it sucked all the fluids out of her. Her face was like a mummy. Then you exited and went directly to quarantine. Yes, sir. Sir? Yes, Specialist. The breach itself occurred the day after that mission. Shortly after that, MTF NU-7 arrived. After suffering a small amount of casualties, they re-established containment on all fronts, with the exception of the town of population 507. A squad of 100 augmented Aztec-era warriors fell upon that town. Using small arms, hunting rifles, and logging equipment, the citizens fought back. Few survived, and those who did told of opponents who spit venom and shot webs when they weren't firing exploding darts from their arms or shredding opponents with their horn-edged arthropod legs. With the help of MTF NU-7, the breach was contained and neutralized. The remains of the augmented warriors were collected and brought to N for storage. A lot of people died. A lot of civilians, normal people, the ones we're supposed to protect.
That was unfortunate.
Indeed. You analyzed the material recovered from the surgical dungeon in the palace. What did you find?
It was amazing stuff. Absolutely amazing.
Was it SCP-447-2?
Yes, and no. It was a mixture of SCP-447-2 and the gel from SCP-1461.
Analysis of video taken by members of the intervention force indicate with a high probability that the tables and some of the fixtures in the surgical dungeon are composed of the same type of sandstone used as raw material by the machines in SCP-1461. Do you have any explanation for that?
Absolutely none, sir.
Dr. Porter, you've been relieved of duty for being indulgent with your projects and access to SCP resources. You've been with the Foundation a long time. I don't have to tell you how we're likely to proceed from here.
I'm no D-class personnel, sir.
Of course not. I didn't mean to imply such a thing. But you will be fired and have your memory wiped. That's more than a decade, Doctor. In a way, it's a kind of death, taking so many years away from a man.
I know. It's either that or eat a bullet. Is that what you're telling me?
You know how the Foundation works.
I do. That's why I went beyond the bounds, Dr. Breyer. We have to be bold.
I'm not going to discuss philosophy. However, I may have a third option for you. One that does not include death in any form.
I'm listening.
I'm sure you know exactly how sandstone from SCP-1461 got involved. I'm guessing you know more about the augments in SCP-1407 than you're going to admit. You're a dedicated man. You've been with the Foundation a long time. I would think that you would want to help us. There's a network of smugglers in the organization. They are transferring contraband from a select group of SCPs. I don't have to tell you how dangerous this could be for them and humankind. I suspect you have contacts with that group or can get contacts given your position. We want information. We want to shut these people down before they do more damage than they probably already have. If you help us, then you can be reassigned and reinstated. I will even put you to work analyzing the corpses recovered from the breach. That's the deal.
That's not a great deal. Those guys can be worse than the 05s.
I wouldn't know, but that's the deal.
That's a big decision.
A life changer.
Can I think about it?
No. Last chance. Work with us, or whatever alternative future you prefer. Decide now. I will not ask again. Which will it be?